Hi, my name is Sid. I am an aspiring video game developer and current college student. This summer, I made a 4-player co-op spaceship game, so if you're interested in seeing how I did that, stick around. But first, let's take it all the way back to where it all started about 5 weeks ago. I think that, that might actually be a little bit off, but I actually don't. You know what? Let's just start the video. I was a software engineering intern this summer and I needed something to do on my lunch breaks, so I decided to make a video game. This wasn't an out-of-the-blue decision for me. I've been making games on and off for 6 years now, but it's been 2 years since I finished a project, and my last project wasn't very interesting. Couldn't come up with any original ideas, so I went back to some stuff I wrote for a D&D campaign I ran and just took stuff from there. This is what I came up with. I'm like 6 hours into editing, and I cannot be bothered to find the sound for this video, so please feel free to finish the joke in your head. I obviously didn't make Skyrim, but I did make something based off of a D&D session I ran last summer. In my last D&D campaign, it had sort of a steampunk fantasy vibe going on, so I gave my party a ship. To supplement the ship, I also came up with a round-based combat system. Pew! The way it works is pretty simple. There's the hacker, the pilot, the mechanic, and the scout. Before every session we played, I'd print out a piece of paper for each party member with information particular to whatever role they were playing on the ship. The way that the rounds worked is pretty straightforward. Basically, at the beginning of every round of combat, I would read off a piece of information on my individual sheet. So let's say, for example, the party was running into a rock wall. Then each of the party members would read something specific to their character on their individual sheets. Then each party member would state what they were going to be doing for the round, and we would go on to the next one after I would read off whatever scenario occurred because of the choices that each party member made. Since, in theory, I wanted this game to be multiplayer focused, I thought it'd be best to design it from the ground up with multiplayer in mind. I was like, how hard could it be? Yeah, to no surprise, programming multiplayer in a game does kind of suck, but this Unity plugin, Photon, actually made it a lot easier. It did take me a couple of days to get up and running with it just because I had to understand how networking worked, but once I understood that, it was a breeze from there, to be completely honest with you. After I finished the character creator and setting up lobbies for individual players, I got started on the interface for each role. So, for example, here I was working on the pilot interface, and every single person, every single role will have their own little workstation, so it feels a little bit more like you're controlling your own section of the ship. After a little bit of work, I had finished the 3 roles for the game: the pilot, the hacker, and the mechanic. I know originally I was going to make a 4th scout role, but I ended up just running out of time. With the interface is done, I started working on the actual gameplay loop. It was set up so that each round the players would do their actions, and then at the end of said round, the game would tally up the actions and then start again. The scoring was based on optimal and suboptimal actions. So, for example, if you were flying through a really tight mountain pass, you wouldn't want to increase your thrusters and decrease your navigation because you'd crash. So, doing actions considered optimal, like in this case slowing down and increasing your shields, would award you more points. At this point, I was pretty much done with everything. All I had left to do was essentially figure out the button functionality for each of the interfaces. Unfortunately, doing that was so incredibly boring that I quite literally almost gave up on the entire project. One of the key tenets of programming is the KISS methodology, which means to keep it super simple. Don't write code where you don't have to, don't make things overly complex. In my case, all of the interfaces were all pretty similar, so in theory I should have been able to reuse the code and have it done pretty quick. But all of the interfaces were just different enough that I had to write that code for each interface from scratch. This wasn't hard, but it was tedious, to the point where I was like, I don't even know if I want to finish the project. But at this point my internship had just ended, so I realized I would either be doing LeetCode or I'd be working on this project, and I did not want to be doing more LeetCode. So I went back to work. There wasn't very much left to do, and I did cut a few corners here and there. You can literally only play 1 round. It was done, and even though it's not a fully fledged AAA game, it's still pretty cool. I never made this to be something I released on Steam or put out to be bought by anyone. It was more just an experiment to kind of see what I was able to do after spending so long away from making games. All in all, I'd say for sure that this was a great learning experience. It'd been years since I finished a game, and I'd never done anything with multiplayer before, so I'd say that I did genuinely learn a lot. Even though it was only really multiplayer over a local network and it was always just me joining up the lobby with myself, I still learned a ton. And yeah, that kind of brings us to the end of this little journey. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and yeah, stay tuned for more.